we had the Chicago Bears taking down the Green Bay Packers. And this might ask you the question, has Caleb Williams finally arrived? I mean, has it finally happened? He threw probably the most perfect pass I have seen him throw, maybe any other quarterback throw this entire season, to DJ Moore in overtime to take the Packers down. The Bears clinch a playoff spot and are in full run for winning the NFC North in year one of Ben Johnson. 22-16 final and overtime. Caleb Williams goes for 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, 19 for 34. And he did it basically the defense was great too. Chicago's defense was great, but Caleb Williams did it. It was impressive. Has he arrived? I mean, has it finally been, now it's time to say that the number 1 overall pick from a few years ago was finally here?
I mean, he did enough to certainly make some noise in this one. You mentioned that final throw to DJ Moore right in the bucket. It was exactly where that ball needed to be. And phenomenal job by Moore holding on to that ball too, making the football move of rolling through the end zone. That was a sweet final play in that game. And to ask if Caleb Williams has arrived, I mean, I would say yes, but to the doubters out there, if nothing else, he's bought time. Like, I think it's pretty clear now that he can have a few down games because he's shown what he's capable of at the NFL level. That's how I look at it. I don't think, even Drake May has had some moments. I feel like in the loss against the Bills, there were some moments where he probably could have thrown a better ball or hit a different target. Like, these guys that are new to the league, they're not going to be perfect down in and down out. And Drake May, we just talked about today. The reason I bring him up, not because I'm a Patriots fan, is because he's number 2 in MVP conversations, man. He's not some random dude who just started playing football and I brought up. He's literally like going to potentially win the MVP. So comparing, Caleb Williams to a potential MVP candidate, I am drawing the age comparison there, not necessarily the play, but I am saying that even the top of the top, especially these young guys, have lapses where they don't necessarily make the right read, or the throw's a little bit inside, or maybe it was a little low or too much of a float on that ball or whatever. They're still learning the NFL game, but this game, to me, it was a huge stepping stone for Caleb, and I do think on some level he has arrived.
Yeah, sometimes the numbers don't say everything. And sometimes it's just the actions, and sometimes it's just the results that can make you say that he's arrived, because I think he has. But if you look at his numbers compared to last year's, they're nothing crazy, and in some cases they're worse. He has a 57.8 completion percentage compared to 62.5 last year. He's only thrown for 3,400 yards compared to 35 last year, but he's still got a couple games left. He's going to surpass that. He's already got 6 interceptions, the same as he did last year. Now he has thrown for 3 more touchdowns. The more incredible thing here, and this is something that is the most important thing, that Ben Johnson himself has helped get Caleb Williams to where it's at. We've talked about this in the past. We've talked about it offline with EPA, and we've talked about it with advanced metrics. Interceptions, yards, completion percentage don't really matter as much as long as you're moving the football. Caleb Williams has been sacked 45 less times than last season. He was sacked 68 times last year. He's only been sacked 23 times. That alone is helping Chicago be a much better football team, a much better offense, and they put a lot of work in the trenches this offseason. That's one thing that Ben Johnson really focused on. They brought in some weapons. Sure, Caleb Williams, they had what it needs to take, but this is exactly how you protect your franchise quarterback, and this is how you compete in arguably the toughest division, not by what I mean toughest is in performance, but the legit toughest, like the most brutal division in NFL and the NFC North. You have to do that in the trenches, and they just proved right there. 68 sacks in 2024, only 23 so far this season.
Yeah, that's a huge statistic. For those who aren't super aware, we've talked about this, but like a sack is somehow worse for your team than an interception. Like, that's how brutal sacks are across the board. Yeah, maybe not in every situation necessarily, but definitely I believe it's statistically averaged out. Like, you really don't want to be taking sacks. It really is not a good situation to find yourself in. So that is a enormous stat for the Bears. And you mentioned like the hard-nosed football of the NFC North. It's one of my favorite features about that division. It's a very unique style, almost Big Ten style of football. And it's a super fun watch. But Ben Johnson and the kind of offensive, kind of guru he is and what he's done for these Bears, can't go understated either. Obviously, we are actively talking about it, but I just want to touch on it again because, yeah, Caleb Williams is great and they've got some weapons and all of that, but the Bears for so long have just been inept at the head coaching position. Like, they just haven't had what it takes to be completely honest. It's a challenging position to be in. I understand that. I would be a terrible NFL head coach. Please don't give me that job. Okay. But they haven't had somebody who can do it. And it looks like Ben Johnson is doing well so far, right? We'll see how that kind of plays out over the next few years. But the Bears might have got a guy here, a guy that can continue to bring them success, even if they don't have an A-plus game from their Caleb Williams quarterback or whoever, maybe their running back or their defensive line, like whoever they're kind of leaning on. Even if they don't show up, I think Ben Johnson's able to manipulate this team and put it in a position to at least attempt to win a lot of games.
Let's take a look at the NFC playoff picture. A lot of green now. First time we've seen some green. A lot of teams clinching the playoffs. Seattle, Chicago, Philly, LA, and San Francisco. Look at that. 3 teams in the NFC West already clinching playoff spots. Really, the only thing left is what happens in the NFC South and then who wins that final wild card spot. I don't think it's possible now that Chicago's got to win that Detroit can win the division. Detroit can just find a way to sneak out Green Bay. So, of course, Chicago has clinched themselves a playoff spot, have not clinched the division yet. The only team that is can clinch the division who has already done that is the Philadelphia Eagles for the NFC East. On the flip side, the Green Bay Packers, Jordan Love, concussion. That's been ruled a concussion. They have a game on Saturday, a short week, if you will. Now, it was a Saturday to Saturday, so maybe it's not a short week because they did play on Saturday against the Baltimore Ravens, who also has an injured quarterback in Lamar Jackson. So we're seeing some unfortunate games coming up in the season. We're seeing the Kansas City Chiefs taking on a game on Christmas Day with potentially a third-string quarterback and maybe somebody off the streets. And then in this one, we're seeing the Green Bay Packers with Jordan Love, who most likely won't be playing if you're having a concussion right now. Probably not going to be ready for Saturday. And then who knows what happens with Baltimore with Lamar Jackson. But Green Bay right now already lost Micah Parsons to an ACL injury. You have Jordan Love. Now, Malik Willis stepped up in this game. I thought he didn't look terrible for a backup quarterback. If there's any backup right now, I think he's been the one that's proved the most so far this season to help them still sneak into the playoffs. They're currently 9-5-1. I think we can find them in the playoffs this year.
Absolutely. It's a very exciting kind of picture that we're looking at, and the NFC being down basically to that last wild card spot is so electric. As we move into the AFC is a totally different game, and that's its own thing. But on the NFC side, it'll be interesting to see who snags that final piece, that final spot. But I know everybody, and I mean everybody, is just dying to see who is going to win the NFC South. That's what everybody wants to know. Which barely positive 500 team is going to be in the playoffs this year?
I mean, the Carolina-Tampa game wasn't bad. It wasn't bad, and it's going to come down to that again in the final week of the season. So at least we have that kind of drama. But yeah, if you're pissed off about college football playoffs, maybe you should direct your attention, your frustration to the fact that the NFC South is going to have a 4 seed. And while the NFC West both has 3 teams with better records, like maybe that's where you should direct your frustration.